I just missed it. I missed the closeness of an audience, of a live audience.
When he came out, there were so many flashbulbs went off. There was moments when the arena was lit.
He would come out on stage and he would start singing, and then you wouldn't hear him for 5 songs. People were yelling and screaming so much.
We all went up to Vegas and saw his show. It was so thrilling.
He was the best showman I've ever seen. He was like an Al Jolson on stage.
Forwards, one of a kind.
You'd never, hardly ever hear his voice crack, you know. He's had iron chops.
When you're there all the time, you don't realize history's being made.
He had an edge to him that was dangerous.
Watch this human being on stage and then watch the people. I can't even describe the feeling.
Every performer who ever performed is lying if they tell you that they weren't influenced in some way or another by Elvis Presley.
In 1969, Elvis Presley made the decision to return to live performing. The venue would be the International Hotel in Las Vegas, a city that Elvis had difficulty conquering 13 years earlier, even though the build-up to that 1956 show had been done in Colonel Tom Parker's signature style.
I remember the first time that I drove into the Frontier Hotel, or driving towards the Frontier Hotel, coming from Los Angeles. And we saw this big 75-foot cutout of this kid. And I heard maybe on the radio Blue Suede Shoes or Hound Dog. Those were the 2 most important just songs at that time. And I said, what is this? I mean, I'm in that show, and is this kid over me? Because we had Freddie Martin's band, myself, and Elvis. When I went in there, and they told me, well, you'll go on before him, or we haven't decided, you'll go on before him or you'll go on after him. And then they watched the rehearsal and everything, and they said, all right, you'll go on after him. And he sang, and the people just didn't take to him. They just didn't know, you know, anything about him.
First night, especially, I was absolutely scared still. Afterwards, I got a little more relaxed. It was strictly an adult audience, and mostly elderly people.
April '56 at the Frontier Hotel. He was a total unknown. There was a 100-foot blow-up of him outside. And I went to see the show, and I sat with Rory Calhoun and his wife, Lita Barron, and Danny from Danny's Hideaway. We sat ringside. And when he came out and started gyrating and rocking and rolling and twisting and tossing, we all looked at each other and said, what is with him?
I think it was too soon. You know, there's something that happens when an artist gets hot with a hit record. Before that record gets through to the average public, it may take a year. That record is already on a downward trend when the public becomes aware of it.
There was all kinds of rumors that he was bombing and he was doing this and he was doing that, but he was going along. And then finally, Parker got a brilliant idea of going to the high schools and getting the kids and having them do afternoon things. Well, you couldn't get near there. He did afternoon things, and you couldn't get near the Frontier. I mean, you couldn't get near the Strip. Our engagement was for 4 weeks. And he was gone after 3 weeks, but he only had a 3-week engagement. Mine was 4 weeks. Freddie Martin was 4 weeks. So everybody wrote up that he was canceled. He was never canceled. But I did say at the time, I told Parker and I told him, I think you got to change your style of clothing. They went to see Liberace, and Liberace got together with him, and that's when they started forming this thing about his dress. He would have special things made and everything, which gave him another charisma.
Elvis wasn't ready for Vegas, and I don't think Vegas was ready for Elvis.
Many thought Presley's inability to connect with the older Las Vegas audience during his '56 appearance was proof that Elvis was nothing more than a fad, something to be worshipped by teenagers and discarded after its usefulness. Presley believed he could better make a name for himself as a respected actor in the mold of his movie heroes Marlon Brando and James Dean.
In the
Though he had made a promising start in his movie career with Love Me Tender, Loving You, Jailhouse Rock,
One through a party in the county jail,
and King Creole, Elvis's goal of becoming an accomplished actor was interrupted by a letter from Uncle Sam drafting him into the Army. When he returned from the military, he attempted to pick up where he had left off 2 years earlier. Sadly, although he worked hard and his movies performed well at the box office, the formulaic films did little to enhance his reputation. Though Elvis was now in Hollywood for most of the year, his mind was still in the city where he had met his one and only professional failure. Only now he had no interest in performing in Las Vegas, but performing wasn't all the city had to offer.
I always loved Vegas because in those days, all the hotels had great entertainers in the big rooms, and every lounge act had great singers, you know, like Billy Ward and the Dominoes, Fats Domino, Della Reese, had all these great talent just in the lounges, which was wonderful. So we hang out there, go there for a week, and end up staying 5 weeks just to play. Just go out, see a show every night, see different entertainers, and stay up all night and sleep during the day and start over the next day. I don't think you ever thought about playing Vegas again because that one experience you had in the 50s. I don't think you ever thought about playing there.
Colonel Parker's decision to have Elvis perform in Vegas was a very shrewd decision on the Colonel's part. In many ways, it marked the reinvention of Elvis Presley.
First of all, I plead innocent of all charges.
So I think the Colonel was very wise in going to Hollywood, making all those films, and creating such a fuss.
She let her hair down and she did the hoochie coochie real slow.
When he came back here, they were ready for him.
Getting Elvis in front of a live audience again meant finding a venue that would be worthy of the king of rock and roll. For the second time in his storied career, Las Vegas beckoned Elvis Presley.
They wanted Elvis to open the International Hotel. The grand opening, the biggest star in the world to open the hotel. Well, Colonel said, no, we don't want to open it. We'll be the second act. And everybody could hear, why? Why wouldn't you want him? So Colonel thought about it. He says, wait a minute, this hotel is going to open up. All hotels in Las Vegas, any hotel, there's a lot of kinks going on. Something's not finished. They open them way ahead of time. And he figured, well, let somebody else open the hotel. That's the reason Barbra Streisand opened the hotel. And she had to go through all the problems. When we signed a contract to play at the International Hotel, it was two times a year. Usually it was in January and August. 2 shows a night, 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock. Non-stop, no days off, not like today. You just did it.
So just as soon as I got out of the movie contracts, I started to do live performances again.
Elvis would not be alone in this new undertaking. In 1956, when he had played the New Frontier Hotel, he had been backed up by a small 3-man combo, appropriate in the sense that his rockabilly roots demanded no more than that to produce the sound generated on his early records. But Elvis's music had grown more complex, and he now required something much more elaborate in the way of backup.
Well, when Elvis got ready to go back on the road again, he had to get a band together. So we got a hold of James Burton. James did a lot of Elvis' sessions.
When I got on the phone, Joe said, James, it's Joe Esposito. I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. I thought it was a bit strange. I didn't know what it was about, you know. So then Elvis got on the phone, and we talked for about 3 hours. And Elvis told me that he watched the Ozzie and Harriet show just to watch me play guitar at the end of the show, and we could sing a song. It was great. I mean, we just talked about the type of music, what he wanted to do. He wanted to do his type of stuff, but he wanted to go even bigger. He wanted to have an orchestra.
I had done an album with James, and he remembered me, fortunately. So he called me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And I wasn't an Elvis fan.
I got a call on a Friday and said, man, this was a few weeks later, and they had been auditioning drummers, and my friend Larry says, man, and they're just, you know, we're going to have one more night, so can you come in tomorrow night?
There was a couple of drummers there the night that the first night that I played, and one of the drummers, he was a really fine drummer named Gene Pello.
This other drummer comes in and knew everybody. He was an established player there in LA, and they play a song.
Oh yeah, this is it, you know, because he was flashy and he had a lot of chops and he was real good.
And I'm sinking lower and lower in the seat, thinking I'm not even going to get a chance to play or meet him or any of that stuff.
Larry Mahobrak, the piano player, said, well, you know, Ronnie Tutt's sitting over there in the corner, and he just flew out here with his drums from Dallas. And of course, Elvis immediately, being the kind of person he was, said, well, yeah, Ronnie, come on, man. Set your drums up, and we'll wait for you, and then we'll play.
They said to everybody, hey, we got one more guy we'd like to play a song with.
The minute Ronnie started playing, you knew that, you know, Ronnie was just perfect for it.
We immediately had a rapport, you know, a real musical rapport, a real personal contact, shall I say. You know, we had a thing that kind of lasted, you know, for all that time.
Well, he was surrounded by the best. He had Ronnie Tutt, none better. Jerry Scheff was none better. The whole front line, James Burton, Glendy Harden. He just appreciated what they were, and he knew what they could do.
You know, each individual in their own right, they're just, you know, they're fantastic. And when Elvis called me and asked me to put this band together, it was really an honor to do it for him.
I was never an Elvis fan. That's the difficult part. I come out of a whole other world of music. I was not a rock and roll roller at all. And from the time I said hello to him, the charisma was just overpowering. And by the time we got through the first rehearsal, I never realized he sang that good.
I went home that night, and I told my wife, ex-wife Vivian, I said, you got to come hear this guy. And she said, oh, come on, you got to be kidding. I said, no, tomorrow night you come down and hear this guy. And so she came down, and we both became fans.
I think it was the International when he first played it, and then later became the Hilton. When he came back here, they were ready for him, and the Colonel did a masterful job. He tied up every billboard in the city. He had posters all over the Hilton. I mean, you know, the Colonel was an old carny man. He knew how to promote.
The place was a carnival. I mean, it was Elvis Now. The dealers wore the straw hats. Yeah. We had banners out in front of the hotel, balloons. I mean, the marquee, Elvis Now.
Signs, Elvis in the casino with balloons and confetti. And I mean, I kept looking around, where's my name? I know I'm on the show, but that's Sammy sure I got a contract. It had no name, nothing. There was nothing on it.
When you were sold out.
We were sold out, yeah.
Yeah, that was your building, sold out.
Sold out. Well, that was my building?
Sure.
I thought you had that building.
No, you're sold out.
Well, I remember opening night in 1969 in Las Vegas at the International Hotel. Elvis was a nervous wreck. Elvis was always nervous before any show he ever did, but that was particularly nervous because, in the first place, a lot of invited guests, and then people in show business know invited guests are a little harder to perform in front of than just fans. And he was, like I've said many times, like a cat, just prancing back and forth.
He was so nervous, he was like a caged panther, you know, getting ready to get let out, you know, to go do the show, so to speak. And we all were very, very nervous.
I knew he hadn't performed live on stage like that for a number of years, I think 10 years. So I was just hoping that I had butterflies for him.
He came up to me that night backstage and he said, James, I'm so nervous I'm climbing the wall here, I can't, you know.
The first night was amazing because, you know, Elvis wasn't really quite sure how the fans were going to receive it. You know.
He just had a lot to prove to himself and I guess the world.
He walked out and the spotlight hit him. You could just feel everybody, the excitement. They just jumped up and started applauding before he started singing because it had been gone for so long off the stage and just appreciated so much, and it just took off.
When the curtains opened and he came out, he had a certain look on his face, you know, and it reflected his concern, you know. I remember I was watching him, you know, and the crowd just went crazy. And you could just see his face just transform, you know, from sort of this doubtful look to this, oh yeah, okay, I remember this, you know. And he just went, and then it was from there. It was just.
That show flew by, and Elvis was just couldn't help see all those fans and And the celebrities like Cary Grant, Sammy Davis, and all those people giving him standing ovations after every song.
The ovation after every number, you know, it was like it was planned, you know, but it wasn't. It was all spontaneous and it was all real. It's just for another performer to sit and watch that is like you want to go home and quit the business, you know.
He was very exciting as a performer on stage. He had so much charisma.
I remember telling someone on the phone, I'm going to Vegas this weekend to see Elvis. He invited us up. Yeah, sure. Elvis invited you up. Oh, he did.
Love me tender, love me true, never let me go.
You just see that he was in cloud nine. He was off the ground. Tears in his eyes from the excitement. And Colonel Parker came back to the dressing room after. He had tears in his eyes. It's the first time I've seen Colonel Parker have tears in his eyes. Just so excited for Elvis. And it was just one of probably the biggest highlights of my life with Elvis, to see that it was such a great success.
I was impressed because, to me, Elvis was such a natural. And the audience response, I saw the letters when they would announce that Elvis was coming into the Hilton. There were letters from all over the world. There were checks for $10,000, $15,000 to tie up a suite for the length of Elvis's stay here.
When Elvis was in Vegas, the buzz was, how do you get in? That was, how do I get a ticket? Who do I know? What can I do? That was the buzz, and everybody just stopped what they were doing.
Vanished the stars to line up 8 o'clock in the morning for the performance of the first show at 8 o'clock in the evening. Now, a lot of people don't believe it, but that's the truth.
That's what I remember most, is the lines of people going winding all through the casino from all over the world. You could find someone from Mexico and a couple from Holland and a couple from Africa, and they would all be done up like Elvis and Priscilla.
When I first saw Elvis at the International Hotel, the Hilton Hotel these days, it was an extraordinary occasion. The lines went on forever.
They used to offer me money to send me roses, gifts. No young lady used to come over to see the show in Las Vegas. They want to sit in the back of the room.
And Bill Medley, Elvis made a reservation for me. Said, yeah, come to, and this place was just wall to wall, y'all. You know, just, you couldn't move. And so they walked me, and they walked me, and they walked me right to the front. I'm here, the stage is here, Elvis is there.
It was wall-to-wall people of all ages, and you could feel a lot of love in that room. And when he appeared on the stage in those magnificent outfits, it was...
Well, I loved the show and I loved seeing him, but I just remember that I had to go to the bathroom so bad, and there was no way I could go. I swear to God, I almost said, Elvis, can I use your head?
Bill became a good friend. Bill, I would say, one of the nicest guys in the business. And so Elvis one time, he says, okay, let's go over and give Bill a shock. He says, let's go see Bill's show. We're going to walk across the stage, not say a word. I'm going to walk ahead, and you guys all walk behind me, walk just right across the stage.
So I'm doing Love and Feeling. You never close your eyes. And I'm right at the place where it's baby, baby. I get down on my knees.
Bill's out there singing one of his big songs, and all of a sudden people are just, they're shocked. And he didn't know what was going on because he didn't see us.
Here comes Elvis. And he walks right by me, in front of me, hits me on the arm and says, "Hi, Bill," and keeps right on walking.
We all walked by. And Bill didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to act.
Well, the place went crazy. Went crazy.
And it was great. And Bill said, hey, oh well. He started singing again. Elvis did it again. Walked back the other way.
So I had another show at 2. And I go on stage, and I mean the place is packed to the wall. Not that it wasn't always packed to the wall, but it was mobbed. They all show up, see if he's going to come on stage with me. Obviously, he's not. I mean, it was a... So I'm going, baby, baby, I get down, and here he comes again. here he comes again. And he walks right in front of me and he hits me on the arm and says, "Hi, Bill."
He did it a few times with Bill, and, you know, just to break the monotony.
I finished the song. They finally quiet down, and I looked at the audience and I said, "I don't know who he is, but he's now starting to piss me off."
One time, Kenny Rogers in the first edition, great acts, Ike and Tina Turner in the lounge. They were in there same time we were playing the hotel. And Elvis would go see these guys all the time. I mean, they didn't even know it half the time. He'd go in the back after the show started and watch the show. We'd all see it and then leave. And they would come see Elvis's shows.
I didn't realize this, but I used to work with the first edition. We were in the lounge here. And Elvis used to come and sit in the back of the room and watch our show. And so someone told me that one night, and I went and sat in the audience for his show, and during the middle of the show, he introduced me as, "Say hello to Kenny Rogers, my friend." And I thought, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I'm Elvis's friend."
The alligator looked tame.
Elvis's wardrobe during this time period became almost as famous and recognizable as the star who wore it. Though it paid tribute to his past, which was rooted squarely in the 1950s era of flash and excess, his new stage persona was decidedly modern and even flashier.
His outfits were always, I remember the aqua one that had the bat wings to it too. So, and the Hawaii show that he did, he wore the white there, didn't he, with the big stand-up collar?
When I looked at Elvis, I said, he's the one person that I could do to the Napoleonic collar with it, because it'll frame his face. And like a lot of things that you do for women when you're designing their clothes is to draw your attention to their face.
He was so far ahead of his time as far as clothing. I mean, the rest of the world was, you know, wearing jeans and shirts and stuff, and here he comes with all these rhinestones and stuff.
The progression of Elvis's costumes were really dictated by the fans. I know he liked the dragon suit, I know he liked the peacock, he liked the leopard, and of course, I think possibly his favorite was always the Aloha Hawaii suit, the American Eagle. But the one thing that I never, in all the period I designed for Elvis, I never wanted any mention of his masculinity to be brought up by, oh, you know, why was he wearing this or why is he doing that?
He said, "What'd you think of the show?" I said, "Fantastic." I said, "I think the costumes are a little faggy, but you know, you look great even as a fag," I think I said to him, and which he laughed at, of course.
Everything about Elvis was scrutinized by the press and public alike. His clothes.
I made him 8 coats. In 1970, in the Superfly time, you know, all the movies, the Flash movie, like all that stuff with the mink collars, the pink coat with the mink, and different things like that.
His cars.
You want red, you want green, you want blue, and of course he gave every one of them an Eldorado convertible for Christmas.
His friends, and even the evolution of the famous Presley pompadour.
It's just a beast in me.
Take your time, baby, I'm the only one hearing why. All you gotta do is just
The whole town was ablaze. Elvis was in town. There's no way to describe it.
I'd follow Elvis in or he'd follow me in when we were at the International then. That was back in the late 60s. It was great fun because I'd tell them to book me either before Elvis or after Elvis because I wanted to, you know, I'd go down a couple of days early and hang out. Because hanging out with them, man, it was tough on you. Because they'd stay up all night and sleep all day.
Sometimes we'd sing all night, way up into the next day. And he loved it. He would sit down and play some piano.
He'd hang out till he got bored with it, and then he'd just go to bed. But the party would just go right on, you know. So we'd watch the sun come up there on the 30th floor. Beautiful, those mountains back there, you know.
The last show would start at midnight. It was supposed to break at 1:30. I guarantee you that show never broke at 1:30. It would go to 2, 2:15, 2:20.
In Vegas, you know, when you do a show there, the casino wants you to only do a short show, because the shorter the show, the faster people go out and gamble. They want to bring people in, see the show, get out and gamble.
Many nights he'd say, "Oh, let's crank these guys up. Let's do an hour. Let's do an hour and 15, you know, because they want the people out there gambling, you know." And he'd do it just to spite it. Hey, these people came to see a concert, and if we're going to give a good one, let's do it.
It's tough working with Elvis because he changed songs right in the middle and go a different direction with it, but they were so great they could follow him no matter what he did.
One night he called out Blueberry Hill, and so I looked at Joe Garcio and I said, what key? He said, we don't do that.
He loved to see if he could fool us. He started songs that we'd never played before on stage.
It was never a set show in those days. He would just want to pull a tune out, he would pull a tune out and sing it, and it was great because everybody behind him was his immediate group, and that was Ronnie and the rhythm section. He'd say, so-and-so, and they'd turn on and they'd start. Well, you can say that to 5 guys. I'm sitting up there with 32.
And of course, Tut and all those guys they knew the drill. And when you got a drummer like Ronnie Tut and a bass player like Jerry Sheff, which is like having a locomotive behind you, you just hang on and play.
You never knew what he would do, and in how that related to music was the fact that he would make movements and things like that, and he expected me to be watching him at all times. The only time he'd ever get upset with me in any way at all would be the fact that if he'd do something and I was looking away and didn't see it, he'd turn around and playfully grab his scarf,
So it was always a scuffle. Let's do this, and bam, and I'd stop and they would start.
Drove Joe Garcio nuts. He just didn't know what to do. I mean, sometimes he'd have to stop the orchestra and then he'd have to point him in at certain times.
Suddenly I'd say, here we go, guys, bar 12, and I'd bring him in, and bar 12 we'd be locked in. And first couple times I did that, he really turned around and acknowledged it because, we didn't leave him out in the desert. We just jumped in the pool. A little late, but we jumped in the pool.
Shelley Fabre told me this. She starred in 3 films, and she's very, I don't know if shy is the right word, but she doesn't like any fuss made over her. She told me whenever she went to Las Vegas, Elvis would call her to come over and see the show. She would say, oh, yes, I want to see the show, but don't make any fuss. You have to promise me you won't introduce me or call any attention. I just want to sit at the table and enjoy the show. And he said, I promise. And every time the lights would come up and shoot right down on Shelley, and she would have to stay. She would just die 1,000 deaths.
When the lights went down, they stuck Liberace at the side of us, and he was just in awe of Elvis.
Now, he stood there and he's going, oh, he's so beautiful. Oh, man, he's so beautiful. So when the show's almost over, somebody comes up to him, Lee, you have to go. Your show is going to start. He said, don't worry about a thing. I'm watching Elvis. My people will wait.
That's what he said.
And he loved Elvis.
I was sitting in the audience and he said, Glenn, he said, Campbell, I understand you're trying to do me down here. And I said, yeah, I'm doing you. I'm not trying to do you. And he shot back with something else. He said, well, you better stop doing me or I'm going to get the boys after you. And I laughed. I said, well, if I'm going to do you in the future, I'm going to have to gain some weight. And the audience booed me. But it was just an instant boo.
God forbid you ever said really anything nasty or mean about Elvis.
The band, Joe Garcia and the band, they just fell out. James Burton, I thought he was going to tinkle his britches when I said that.
They would come down on you as if a million bricks were hitting you at one time.
I wish I hadn't said it, But boy, the band laughed and the audience booed. It was
The one kid way in the back, he starts barking like a dog, woo, 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 like that, and Elvis says, get that guy a fire plug.
Yeah, he used to do that. But you know what?
What about the guy with the bald head? And he's
25 years since Elvis's death or about, and I don't, when was it, in the 50s, the late 50s, that he really began his career, and those who were his fans then are still his fans to this day. And then there's a legion of brand new people who discover his music.
Surprisingly to me, the next generation of kids was also very interested in Elvis. Usually when a person is of a certain era, there is a certain age group that really relate to them. But I found with Elvis, even the younger kids related to him.
He said, in the audience tonight, we have a fellow who said he's the greatest
and he is the greatest. Muhammad Ali, stand up. Muhammad stood up, he said, Elvis, you're the greatest. And we went backstage, and then Elvis told us about how he does karate and he likes to box. He liked to get into boxing, and Muhammad told him, no, you're too pretty. He said, you do the singing, I'll do the boxing.
Muhammad Ali is in the audience, and he would like to meet you. And I was like, oh yeah, bring him on back, because Elvis, loved Muhammad Ali. And he said, yeah, bring him on back. So Muhammad Ali comes back there, and he's got his entourage with him, and big old guys, man, big bodyguard guys. And I thought, whoa, they will all walk in the dressing room, and here's a little skinny guy sitting around. So Elvis and Muhammad Ali is sitting at the table. So all of a sudden, Elvis stands up, Muhammad Ali stands up. And we're all looking like, what is going on? So Elvis goes into a karate stance. Muhammad Ali goes into a boxing stance. Because Elvis loved karate, as you know. He was into it very deeply and was an 8th degree black belt. And Muhammad Ali took a stance, and Elvis just swept his feet out from under him with one leg. It happened that fast. And then, but Muhammad Ali sat on the floor and looked at Elvis and started laughing, and Elvis started laughing, so we all started laughing.
Las Vegas had become a working playground for Elvis and his friends, a place where they could not only make a healthy income, but could indulge themselves while in the company of some of the most popular and talented entertainers of their generation. But all was not fun and games in the city of sin. The dark side of celebrity soon raised its ugly head in the oasis Elvis now regarded as his home away from home.
Well, a couple of years into playing Vegas, my wife got a phone call from a guy, and he says, I've been trying to reach Joe. And she said, who is this? And he wouldn't say the name. He says, I need to get a hold of him. I need to tell him somebody is out to kill Elvis.
I'm gonna tell you something. That was hairy. It really was, because the FBI came in on it.
They had the police or the FBI go to my house waiting for the phone call from this person to see if they could get more information. Well, the guy never called back.
We got in the mail over there for the dinner show. They had these menus, and on the front of the menus at that time, they had the performer that was in the main room at the time. They had them on the front, like they had Elvis on the front of the menu.
There was a picture of Elvis with a drawing of a gun shooting at his head.
Elvis thought about it, and he said, you know, these people came, they paid good money to see me, and if something's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Well, I guess I'm very happy I wasn't wearing the white jumpsuit, I can tell you that.
There was FBI guys in the audience for about 3 days.
We had two guys with us, and
Yeah,
one of
there was
them,
two.
remember the guy who pushed Mrs. Kennedy back into the car? He was sat at our table. Youngblood, I think his name was.
It was
he
a
was
big
sat
one.
with
He was
us
sat
with
with us.
another guy, and I really believe that Elvis put him there to look after us,
But you know,
because
yeah.
he was that way.
We were scared, and Elvis called us in before we went down to do the show, me and Jerry and Red, and started crying. Said, I haven't done anything to anybody to have them want to kill me, man. And this wasn't too long after that Charles Manson thing had happened, and you know, Elvis was supposedly on that list. He had that picture of Charles Manson with that grin on his face. And he told us, he said, guys, if this son of a gun kills me, I want you guys to get to him first. I want his tongue ripped out. I want his eyeballs ripped out. I want him really looking bad. I don't want to see have some smiley little face grin on his face that I killed Elvis Presley.
But he did tell us before he went on stage, he says, guys, he says, some guy out there, SOB, tries to kill me. If he does, you make sure you guys kill him.
And I got news for you. We would have messed the guy up. We would have messed him up bad.
Most people refer to this period of Elvis's life as the Vegas years due to the glitz and glamour that Elvis projected, but this is in some ways a misnomer. Vegas was not the only place that Elvis was appearing during this time. On February 27, 1970, he began a 6-show engagement at the Houston Astrodome. Although the acoustics were terrible due to the shape of the Astrodome, the concerts were an unqualified success, drawing more than 200,000 fans.
Those kind of venues are not great for performers. He wasn't too happy with it because The audience was too far away.
We had so much slapback that you couldn't listen to. You had to really pay attention to what was going on and listen to each other.
It was during this engagement that Elvis once again displayed his true character and unswerving loyalty to those around him.
There was a message sent to leave the black girls. They didn't need the black girls, and so Elvis responded with, if they don't come, I don't come.
Well, when Colonel signed to do Madison Square Garden, Elvis was a little concerned because New York's are famous for tough audiences. Like, you know, and I remember Tom Hewlett and Jerry Weintraub saying, Elvis, don't worry about it. New York's going to love you.
Elvis, you're the biggest star in the world. They're going to not like you, they're going to love you. He said, you're going to have trouble selling shows in New York City. I said, no, I'm not. We ended up, I think, playing 10 shows. You have to look it up. I think it was 10 shows the first time. 10 shows, that's 200,000 people. 200,000 people. They came and slept outside Madison Square Garden for 2 weeks to get tickets. They slept, they brought beds, they brought cots, they brought bedrolls. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Oh, New York brought him in. And when New York wants you, they want you. You know, New York has got...
There'd be a row of people coming up to the stage, and he'd always have his scarf. And it was almost, to me, I would look at it. He wouldn't want me to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's not something he ever wanted to be perceived as. But it was almost as if he was like blessing each person. You know, he'd take the scarf off, wrap it around their neck, kiss them. They'd hold their hand, they'd try and pull his rings off. You know, his hands would be all really swollen, and a lot of times afterwards he'd want me to take his rings off and pat him down, and I couldn't get his rings off because his hands were so swollen sometimes and so scratched.
On January 14th, 1973, Elvis performed a live concert from Hawaii.
I'd just like to say before anything else that it's a great privilege to do this satellite program, and I'm going to do my best, and all the people that work with me, to do a good show. It's just pure, you know, entertainment. No messages and no this and that. Just to try to make people happy for that 1 hour that he comes across. If we do that, well, then I think I've done a job.
The program was broadcast live via satellite and watched by an audience of over 1 billion people, a quarter of the entire population of the world.
Aloha from Hawaii. I said to the band before we started, I said, this is the first time any show has gone on television all over the world. I said, we're all first on it. That was a great moment.
It was very well thought out. It was very well planned out. And it was very strategic in the sense that we'd only have one take at things. So he had to feel comfortable in the songs that he was doing were the right songs for it. So we did a lot of actual timing and rehearsing for it.
Well, the Hawaiian people, I guess he had done a couple of motion pictures there. They were just, the audience was just phenomenal. But the thrill of being the first, you know, I drop a downbeat, and it's the first time you drop a downbeat, and it's going all over the world on television. You know, that's a first. I mean, that's a big time first.
When we went to do the Aloha from Hawaii show, he told the colonel, said, let's give everybody in the show a week vacation in Hawaii. And they did. He gave all the people that were on tour with us a week's vacation on him and the colonel.
Though he was one of the most successful people in the world for most of his life, wealth and power were not the driving force behind Elvis's ambition. He was more interested in what he could accomplish for the people around him. By the 1970s, Elvis's generosity towards friends, family, and even total strangers had become legendary.
At Graceland, there's a trophy room. You can literally spend hours upon hours in that room looking at plaques from, you know, you can't count the Little League teams the guys sponsored, or, you know, the thank you letters from people whose lives he touched.
He would like for shock value to give things away to different people. You know, another lady was over there once window shopping for a Cadillac, and Elvis asked her, he said, you guys buying a new car? And they said, oh, so no, Mr. Presley, we're just looking. He said, well, if you could buy a new car, which one would you get? She said, well, we'd get that one right over there. And Elvis told the salesman, put it on my tab. He said, Merry Christmas. Gave her a brand new catalog, a total stranger.
Gee, Elvis, that's a cute table. He'd say, hey, Joe Esposito, put that in Mrs. Farrah's car. I'd say, no, Elvis, I don't want that. Yeah, you want that. Put that. I'd say, no. So I'd say, Joe, you know. So I was afraid to say anything was nice because he'd give it to me.
He says, what the hell are you going to Bangkok for? I said, well, all my life I've wanted a blue star sapphire ring, and I'm going over and get one. I hear they have some beauties over there. He said, did you ever see a real good one? I said, yeah, I've seen it, boy. And he looked, and he dug in one of his little cases there and pulled this ring out and says, what do you think of that one? I said, oh my God, it is beautiful. He says, it fit? Yeah, it fits. He said, keep it, it's yours. Hell, I can't take that ring. He said, the hell you can't, you just told me you wanted one. I give it to you, wear it.
And then the time Elvis is in Colorado and newscaster comes on, the 10 o'clock guy says, well, Elvis is in Denver this weekend, and he gave away 3 brand new automobiles to Denver police officers. Hey, Elvis, if you're watching, I could use a brand new car. I'm driving an old Volkswagen. Elvis called his road manager, Joe Esposito, said, Joe, get him a car. Joe ran around like crazy. When the guy got off the air, sitting right in front of the television studio, was a brand new automobile. The guy about fell out.
My daughter still has his top of his pajama suit. She still has it, and it has Elvis on it. So we said, gee, those are cute pajamas. You can meet the public in those. You know, that's the kind they were. And he said, oh, here, take it. He said, can't take the bottoms off, but you can have the top. So that's one thing I took.
She'd always wanted this ring, and she was afraid her husband would get upset if she bought it. And he said, go and box it up and give it to her. And he said, you really? He said, do it. So he did. Went, took her to the lady, and she said, what's this? And he said, that gentleman over there, Mr. Presley, would like for you to have this ring. And she got very emotional, and she said, no, no, you can't do this. And he said, anybody that wants something that bad should have it.
Elvis loved to do more than anything in the world is perform live on stage. And that's how he started, playing little clubs and little dates and stuff like that. I mean, recording sessions were fun, but it's not the same feel you get from the audience. And any entertainer that's a performer in front of a live audience will tell you there's nothing, no feeling in the world like it, and Elvis has said it many times. You feel the love from the audience, you feel the electricity, it makes you come alive, and that's why he said that's his favorite thing to do, and that's why he would always do it.
Elvis was like an Air Force. It had 4 planes. You know, the Colonel had a plane, Elvis had a plane, the band had a plane, and the crew had a plane. And then all the sound guys and all the concession guys were in semi-trucks and buses and stuff. So when we hit a town, it was like you knew Elvis had come to town because the Air Force had landed, you know.
You had the bootleggers moving. Everybody and their uncle was moving along. There was a lot of people moving all at once. Exhilarating. It was just unbelievable. Every town you went to, you would feel that electricity, especially after, you know, when that opening of 2001.
We go to Kansas for the first show, and Felton Jarvis said, okay, second tune is Teddy Bear. Elvis will do this. You go da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Burton has the rest of it till the very end. I Can't Help Falling in Love. You do that intro. Easy gig. Just pay attention. And so I knew I could do it, but I must tell you, after Mystery Train, and then Elvis went. I was very, very nervous.
Late in his career, Elvis began to plan what would have been his first tour outside the United States. He had always expressed an interest in playing for his fans in Europe and other countries around the world, but one thing or another had always conspired to prevent it. This time, however, Elvis undertook the planning himself.
Phone rang again, and I answered it. Captain Leslie, yes, this is Joe Esposito. Said, we're sitting here with the boy. I think he always called him the boy. And some other members of the entourage. And we're planning a world tour, and we'd like to know if you'd like to be our pilot. Oh my God. Absolutely.
He thought he was going to be touring overseas. That's why he bought the airplanes. He was definitely preparing to tour overseas.
He wanted to go to Europe, and that would have been a challenge, and he would have got himself in shape.
Before anything actually happened after that, why Elvis passed away, and that took care of that.
It's a shame that Elvis Presley didn't get to go to England and the world. And he could have went anywhere in the world and played. And I'm, you know, it's just, and every time that I go to these different countries and play, you know, that's, how come Elvis never came over here? You know?
Muhammad Ali was the most recognizable person on planet Earth. And we traveled all over the world. And everywhere we went, people would ask him, did you meet Elvis? What's Elvis like?
Elvis was destined never to tour outside the United States, but it was in Las Vegas that he found the stage from which he would be presented to the rest of the world.
There have been a few extraordinary people in entertainment. Let's try to remember some. Rudolph Valentino, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley. I mean, you can count them on the fingers of one hand. They have the magic that none of us can figure out. There's a mystery, a mystique, and it just gets bigger and bigger every year.
What is the thing that makes him go on forever? Is it that he died so young? Is it that he was talented? He must have touched somebody somewhere. I mean, it's touched everybody, everywhere. I don't know.
That man was a wonderful, wonderful man, and if something went wrong later on in his life,
we don't know what happened with it, but
he was
not
wonderful.
with us. He was
wonderful with us.
We call him our treasured friend. He is.
At the heart of it all was a person that everyone that worships Elvis wishes that he was that person. He was that person. He was that guy from Tupelo that was a Southerner, true at heart, loved the church, loved his mom, loved his fans, and was totally fascinated by being Elvis Presley himself. I think it blew him away he was Elvis Presley, you know.
His most happy time was on stage entertaining his fans. That gave him the energy, I guess, to carry on doing other things.
It's the memories. It really is. The memories, and he opened me up to a lot of music. You know, here I am at my age, I'm making a living in rock and roll. You know, I know a lot of friends that wait for the big bands to come back.
We had a rapport musically that is real hard to come by, and in music, you rarely have that with people. And so he's one of those guys that you definitely miss. You know, you definitely do.
I miss him as much as I miss anybody that's ever been a friend of mine. He was just very, very special human being that graced us with his presence on this earth, I think. He was a very special person.
I started going with Bill Medley, one of the loves of my life, as well as Elvis at that particular time as the years went by. And we were driving around one night, and maybe Joe will remember this, and we got to talking about Elvis, how much we really cared and how worried we were about his isolation and so forth. I said, let's go steal him.
Connie and I, we dated for a while, and she was friends of Elvis's, and both of us were friends. Yeah, we came up to the Hilton. I think I came in to see Connie, and so yeah, we went over there and tried to get him out.
I'll never forget Elvis's face. He walked in the room because Joe had said, you know, hey, Connie's here or something like that, and he walked out and he was smiling, and he saw Bill, he saw me, and for a split second, he went, wait a minute, you know, this is kind of my territory, and then he went, no. He said, this is good. This is really good, you guys. Wow, that's perfect. And so we told him what we wanted to do, and he said, wow, that'd be great, that's gonna be fun. He never went.
I think he went from the living room to the dining room. It was about as good as we did.
By the time the karate started and the 1,000 people just trying to get a piece of him, you know, and it was our night too, and we were in love at the time, and we said, we'll see you, babe, you know, we love you, and he said, I love you guys, I love you guys, and I never saw him again. That was pretty late in the game.
Just always felt bad, you know, that, I mean, the Righteous Brothers got pretty big. We certainly, nobody was where Elvis got and was, but if Bobby and I weren't together, I could go walk around, you know, maybe somebody would say, aren't you? And I would say no. And so I always felt bad, you know, that he never, you know, that he was kind of, there's good news and the bad news, man. Good news, you're Elvis Presley. Bad news is you're Elvis Presley. You know, you can't do much.
I